legendary shafts.
You know your weapons. It's a lever-action breech loader. Usual barrel length's 30 inches. This one has an extra 4. It's converted to use a special 45 caliber 110 grain metal cartridge with a 540 grain paper patch bullet. It's fitted with double set triggers and a vernier sight. It's marked up to 1,200 yards. This one shoots a mite further.
An experimental weapon with experimental ammunition.
You could call it that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are looking at the Australian Western Quigley Down Under. Now, as you can already gather from the title, this movie has a load of problems, and I don't want to go into some long speech in the beginning to bring upon the atmosphere for this review, blah 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 blah. I just want to get right into it. As always, we start off by taking a look at the creative team behind the movie. Now, this movie was directed by Simon Windsor, and this is the same director behind the miniseries that is credited for reviving the Western genre in general, and that series would be Lonesome Dove. Now, he only did the first miniseries and the last miniseries in the Lonesome Dove saga, and that was Comanche Moon with Val Kilmer, I believe. He did direct a movie that we've already covered here on the channel, and that movie was The Phantom with Billy Zane. I'll provide a link to that video if any of you are curious about that. But other than that, the only other notable thing that he did was direct quite a few episodes of The Adventures of Young Indiana Jones. And this movie was written by John Hill. Now, as a writer, the biggest movie that he worked on was Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which he went uncredited for his contributions. But other than that, he wrote a couple episodes of Quantum Leap and a couple of episodes of LA Law. Now let's move on to the character analysis portion of this video. And we are going to start off with Tom Selleck as Matthew Quigley. Ah yes, Tom Selleck, the man most notable for this. Well, other than the mustache, did you know that he originally was supposed to play this character? Yes, Indiana Jones almost had a stash, one of the coolest mustaches in movie/TV history other than Sam Elliott, but that's left up for debate. He left Raiders of the Lost Ark to go do Magnum P.I., just a fun fact in case if you guys did not know, but back to the movie. He plays a sharpshooter complete with a Sharp's carbine, so at least the filmmakers got that part right. And for those that don't know, that's where the term sharpshooter comes from, is a guy that can, shoot with the Sharp's carbine. I don't want to go into the history of it because otherwise we'll be here for about the next 20 minutes. So look it up if you're curious. Anyways, he's an American sharpshooter who accepts a job from a landowner down in Australia to help him take care of problems, and that's really it with him. Next up, we have Alan Rickman as Elliot Marston. Alan Rickman, the guy that was such a good bad guy every time he portrayed one, as seen here.
What was it you said to me before? Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
But my all-time favorite line from Rickman has to be this one from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Loxley! I'm gonna cut your heart out with a spoon!
A true shame that he died at the age of 69. But his character in the movie owns a good amount of land in Australia, and he wants to hire a sharpshooter to help him take care of the native Aborigines. Now, to be fair, he does state in the movie that his parents were slaughtered by them, and he is still having trouble dealing with them. Meaning, he and his men are still getting attacked, and he wants a sharpshooter that can take him out at a distance. This is not the hallmark of a villain. In my opinion, this character is completely justified in his actions. And finally, I know I'm going to butcher the hell out of this last name, but I have never heard of this actress. That was Laura San Giacomo as Crazy Cora. Now, she not only serves as the love interest for Matthew Quigley, but she also serves as a vehicle for the audience to see the events of the movie play through, which we'll get into right now. So let's get into that narrative analysis, and I'm going to get right to the point here because I don't want to spend too much time on this. Matthew Quigley is a character that is at least 100 years ahead of his time. Now, what do I mean by that? When he shows up in Australia, Elliot Marston, the landowner, wants to hire him to help him take care of the local Aborigines that are still terrorizing him and his men at that time. They need a sharpshooter to help with the distance because, according to Marston, the Aborigines are wising up to the range of their weapons, so get someone in there who can take him out from a distance. Makes a lot of sense. Quigley instantly sucker punches him. Then him and Cora are dropped in the desert and decide to align with the natives to kill Elliot Marston. Was there a land dispute during this movie? Who the hell knows? The only thing that we definitively know about Elliot Marston is he was born in Australia to settlers, and his parents were both slaughtered by Aborigines. Yes, he owns a lot of land, but it's not clear whether he wants more and the natives are fighting him over it, or the natives are trying to take the land back from him. The only clear thing in this movie is the natives clearly want him dead. So I would argue that Elliot Marston's not really that much of a villain, just a guy, looking out for his best interests. Then his men track down Quigley and Cora after word gets back that they might still be alive. The local Aborigines save both Quigley and Cora from death in the desert, despite the fact that their encounters with European settlers at that time, we're talking, 1840s, upwards of the 1870s, were mostly negative. These people, they don't like each other. They want to kill. They want to kill each other, essentially. But no, they take these two in and just don't question it. The Aborigines take them in. Don't question their motives. None of that. The movie goes out of its way to not show the Aborigines bringing the fight to Elliot Marston, which raises my doubts about there being a land dispute. There's nothing in the movie that even suggests it. What do the villains of this movie do? Just slaughter the natives by shooting at them as they're running away and going so far as to throw them off a 500-foot cliff. Why did they do this? Because Elliot Marston up to that point was not a villain until his men were quote-unquote kicking the dog. And remember this in one of the rules of writing. If the hero saves the cat, then the villain kicks the dog. And at one point in the movie, I do remember this, they were going out of their way the filmmakers were going out of their way to try to make the case that the Comanches, the Native American tribe, the Comanches, were not some bloodthirsty motherfuckers at the time, which bull fucking shit. There were two notorious Native American tribes that were notoriously bloodthirsty, and those were the Apaches and the Comanches. Go ahead and read your history, but this movie wants you to believe that none of that even existed. And honestly, I've gone on long enough, and I said that I wouldn't spend too much time on this. I was going to talk about the final showdown between Quigley and Marston and a couple of Marston's guys, but that isn't even worth mentioning. Like I said, Marston wasn't much of a villain during the movie, so the final showdown really didn't matter at the end of the day. Now let's talk about how the movie was received. And this movie has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 59% based on 17 critic reviews and an audience score of 74% based on 10,000 plus ratings. And as of the release of this review, this is what Rotten Tomatoes is now doing with audience ratings. There's nothing I can do about that. And also at the time of release of this review, there is no more critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know if Quigley Down Under, I don't know if there's just not enough reviews. Maybe the movie's just a little too old. But we're going to have to wait and see for other reviews that are going to come in the future. And this movie sits on IMDb at a comfortable 6.9 out of 10. Based on 20,000-ish reviews. Again, same type of thing as Rotten Tomatoes. They don't show the exact amount anymore. And at the time this movie released, this was back in 1990, the critic responses were generally mixed, and Roger Ebert gave the movie a 2.5 out of 4 stars, stating that the movie was flawed but a respectable neo-western, and I highly disagree with that. Now I'm gonna end this review off with this. I'm normally not the type of person to tell you what to watch and what not to watch, but I have to break my own rule with this one. This Western is honestly not worth your time. The execution is really, really bad. I don't know what the villain's motivations were other than take care of the people that have constantly been at war with him. That's really the only thing in this movie that shows a land dispute. But other than Matthew Quigley being 100 years ahead of his time, there's nothing else to this movie. I have to write this movie off as an attempt to downplay what was actually going on at the time when Australia was transforming from a British penal colony to an actual colony with a functioning economy. We also see that this movie wasn't even well liked at the time of this release. And one last point that I'm adding as I'm recording this. This movie was incredibly one-sided, and this is where I disagree with Roger Ebert, because he never brings this up. They never showed the Aborigines actually attacking Elliot Marston. Therefore, it never showed his true motivations. Remember the old adage, a hero is only as strong as the villain. By making this movie extremely one-sided, there was no real conflict between Quigley and Marston, and therefore, it's a movie not even worth watching. What this movie needed was Quigley doing one job with Marston where the Aborigines blatantly attacked Marston and his men. But the filmmakers went out of their way to not include that, and therefore making sure that this movie wasn't worth the cost of admission or even the time to watch it.